So welcome to the video portion of the dining etiquette episode. Cynthia and Deeker here. We're kind of joking around saying it's going to be a bit of a battle.
The battle of the forks.
Battle of the forks. She's voting for fork and left. He's voting for fork and right.
Yeah.
I'm going to go through the basic standard rules, the reasons behind them, just the things that have to do with that would need a visual to explain them better. And then you can actually listen to the entire audio episode and we'll go through more scenarios, what to do, whens, not to do. That doesn't necessarily need a video component. Okay. So this would be a common setting if you were going to a 2 or 3 course dinner. So either a dinner party or if you're at a wedding. A wedding example. And then, so this is kind of the setup for one person. So it might look like a lot, and if you can see it, I'll do little zoom-ins later, and I have a diagram on the show notes as well. So on your left is the bread plate. I'll show you the little tricks to remember that afterwards. So that's where you put bread on. I'm not going to go through the details in the entire bread serving process, because that's a whole other thing. That's a whole other episode. So just in case you're not supposed to take the whole piece of bread and butter the whole thing. The proper way is to actually put the bread on here. You take some of the butter, put it on your bread plate, and then you tear off a bite-sized piece of bread, put butter on that one piece.
I'm watching Deek's face.
Poor Deek's going like, seriously? Whatever. No, you're not supposed to be making a manwich, right? It's supposed to be bite-sized. So that's how you deal with the bread. There may or may not be a bread knife on it. If there's a bread knife on it, that is for you to use and you alone. So you're supposed to use the knife that's maybe in the bread dish on the table to transfer the butter onto your plate, and then you use your own thing. So don't use the one.
Is it okay at least? Like what I do is like actually I don't butter the whole thing. What I do, well, sometimes I do. I cut it in half first, then I butter the whole thing.
You're making a sandwich.
Yeah, well, kind of. Yeah, both sides. I max out on the butter, and then I take a bite, and then that part that's white, then I butter that too.
Okay, maybe we just take your process and make it down to bite-sized ones, right?
Dumb it down a notch.
Just a little bit. And it looks bite-sized. Not if you have to like use fingers to push it. Anyways. Okay. So and on your right-hand side, there's either going to be a couple options. So if you're at a square or rectangular table, you're going to have probably your coffee cup on this side. If your coffee cup's not on there, there's a couple options for that. Sometimes it's because certain formal services, wedding service, etc. I know that I used to only serve coffee to those who wanted it after dinner, so and it saved room from having the coffee cup and saucer on the table. If you're going to a place that has round tables and it's like tucked in, you don't see this cup and you just see another plate that looks exactly like your bread plate on the other side. So this is where the confusion comes. Yeah. Where there's people that will sit down at this and everybody's got exactly the same thing, and everyone's waiting for that first person to sort of stake claim to their plate. Yeah. So the easiest way to remember, so this is going to be backwards on your video, but so you're basically, you used to do it in your kid and you go like this, right? So this is actually making a B and a D symbol. Right. So bread's on this side, drinks are on this side.
I see.
So I have seen guys in suits, all distinguished or whatever, and they're doing this. At the table. So if you remember it and you're sitting at a table and you want to make sure that you kind of stake claim to the right plate, either move a fork, to grab a dinner roll or bread, or put something on it just so that you can show everyone, this is my bread plate, right? And then this way everyone will that starts the process for everyone. Glasses, there's a reason why the glasses are in a certain order, not just because of sizes. Usually they're in the order that the service is going to go. So for most meals, it's going to be white wine, red wine, and then the water glass is either tucked in behind or it's maybe on the right-hand side, and that's just so that water is always easily accessible regardless of where. If you're going to those fancy wine tasting dinners, yes, you're going to have a little lineup. And sometimes if there's not enough room to go towards the center of the table, they'll have it across the front. Those are the fun dinners.
So if someone orders red and not white,
they will take away the other glass.
Yeah.
But if you're going to go to a dinner where they have all the glasses, take all the pairings, right? They're usually offering one or the other. But usually, so they'll put them all out waiting for you to decide what you're going to have. Or if you want to have a little bit of both and it's available, take both. I would. Good. Okay. So then silverware, you're going to work outside in. So even if you're not sure what's serving, if they're not sharing the menu with you, you're always going to start from the outside in. So big spoon on the outside, that's for soup because that'll usually come first. Speaking of soup, this is one of those little things. It's a little difficult to get. No, slurping's good. Slurping's good. One of the things that's difficult for some people to get the hang of is spooning away from you as opposed to forward. Take some little tricks and times and practicing at home. One of the reasons for doing that is just so that you're less chance of you splashing on yourself, especially because when you're at a restaurant you're dressed nice. So spooning away from you, and it is actually very acceptable to hold on to the bowl when you get down at the bottom, so you can tilt it away from you so that you can access it.
Picking up and drinking, not so cool.
We were talking about that actually in some Asian restaurants. It's absolutely,
sure.
Especially if it's like a special broth or something like that. It's actually meant to be consumed. And if there is no spoon, that's what they're expecting you to do, is to use your hands, which is fine. Not hands in the bowl, just hands on the outside of the bowl. Okay, the fact that I even have to say that. Just
so he's gonna dip his bread with these like butters and
just for the croutons, dipping your bread. Okay, and yes, you can dip your bread and stuff in that. Okay, so let's pretend soup course is done. Soup course is done. So sometimes you're gonna have a either a salad plate or your second course, and then you're gonna have. Oh, can I have my spoon back for a second?
Oh, you want it back? I'm sorry.
That's okay. I know you're a good assistant. Just hang on a second. Slow me down.
Excited.
Because I want to talk about pasta.
Oh, yes.
So sometimes you're going to have a second course and then you're going to have an entree, or maybe they have just a dinner plate and then they have what they call a charger, which is one of those just flat, pretty things, sometimes made, look like metallic, sometimes they're made of other materials. Whether or not they have a tablecloth or a placemat, there's usually something underneath. So your dinner plate, so if you're going to have a pasta, it's usually not necessarily on a plate. They usually have those called pasta plates, like half bowl, half plate. So you have two options. Let's pretend that was my salad. Take that. Move that over there. Okay, so you have two options for pastas. You can either, this will be the second time, you can either hold on to your spoon, or if you want to keep it in your left hand, if you're really adept at your left hand with your fork, you can use the fork inside your spoon to twirl your linguine, spaghetti, whatever else. Sometimes restaurants don't have the spoon there, and it's okay to ask for one if you feel comfortable that way. The other way to do it is actually just to twirl it on the side of your plate until you make enough. So essentially it's like 1 or 2 strands is the appropriate amount.
Not the big mound.
If you have to sit there and do this, and do this, and do this.
You have a bowl this big.
Yeah. It's like, and how can you possibly consume that without really looking like a bad Facebook video? Really. Okay. Wait, okay. So then there's 2 ways I want to describe having to do with holding your silverware, and this is your fork and knife debate. So, European style, actually, for all styles, you always start off the same way. Fork's in the left,
Right.
and knife is in the right, because you're using that for cutting, tines down. Now, the difference is that for European style, you keep it this way. So you're going to use your knife as the tool to push things onto the fork as you need to. I've even seen like grains of rice, rolling the peas, corn, whatever, everything goes on that and then goes into your mouth. So yes, it's smaller bites, which is harder. Or if you want to go to a North American style, that's where you're actually switching. And then you can put your knife, not necessarily on the table. If there's the edge of your plate or anything, if there's a charger or anything else, you can put it on there. But basically it's on the side of your plate, and then you can go ahead and use your fork. So you can switch back and forth. Both are acceptable. The only thing is that if you have one style that you prefer to use, you really shouldn't be alternating on a constant basis. Because especially if you're eating only with one other person, it's a little crazy with the knives and the clicks and the things. It just gets to be too much. So if you're going to eat one way, do it that way. If you're going to do the North American style and switch, go ahead and switch. But don't just constantly...
So you should like cut all of your meat up
Cut
first.
a few, take some bites, go back
I wondered
through.
about that. If you could like cut everything like you do for your
Like
kids.
kids.
No, like that feels weird. Like I shouldn't be doing that.
You could. I've seen people do that just because they're trying to play with their food because they don't really want to finish it all. I know the tricks. Okay, so that's the options for that. So that's it for that part. And then I want to talk about the napkin. I guess that's the last one, I think. Second last one, because I'll talk about dessert. Yes. So, napkins. So a couple of things about napkins. One, if you go to any kind of a restaurant or a place and they have a white napkin, if a waiter comes over to you and offers you a black one to swap it out, it's not just because he thinks the black one's nicer for you, especially because if your entire table's not. If you're wearing black pants or a black skirt, it's traditional in fine dining restaurants to swap out for a black napkin so that you don't get white lint on your black pants.
Not the restaurants I eat at, but that's super cool.
But yes, so if you get offered that, and some restaurants, they may not necessarily just offer it to you, but they will have it. So you can always ask if they have a black napkin if you're concerned. So that's one of the reasons. The other thing is that I always think that if you're wearing in dark colors, having the white napkin here, it really shows
Yeah.
if you
It's
have
really
stains
obvious.
or anything. It's so, you know, white on another color is not so bad, but black on black is a little easier. Okay, so that's it. So then when you sit down at a table, regardless of who you're eating with, who got there first, whether it's business, pleasure, or anything else, immediately grab your napkin and take it out of wherever they've tucked it. Sometimes they've tucked it inside the
Don't get me started on
glasses.
that one.
Sometimes they fold it on the side. Sometimes it's folded on top of your place setting. You don't know. So you automatically take it, and then just way it gets it out of the way. And you're gonna have it so the fold it in half, and the fold is towards you. So this is now your little, I want to call it your envelope, your receptacle. So as if something falls, I've just slid on the floor with my
When you're
slippery
wearing
leather.
leather pants.
When I'm wearing leather pants, doing good time dining etiquette. Okay, so if it's sitting on your lap. Now, if something is falling, you need to dispose of something from your mouth, gristle, whatever. Something gets stuck in anything that you need to get rid of. That's where you kind of hide it.
Then
It's
you
like a
just
little
fold it up.
peekaboo. So if you did it the other way, it's a little more obvious, and that's going to fall on your lap, which is
Right.
going to get on your clothes. So you just do it the other way. This way, it's also easier. You can just fold it in when it's time for you to tuck it away.
Interesting.
So one of my pet peeves has to do with putting napkins anywhere where it's going to be in direct contact with food.
Right.
So when you get up from a table, even if you're going to the ladies' room or gentleman's room, or if you're going to go and greet another guest, you're going to the bar, some people go outside for a smoke, to each his own. If you have to get up the table for any reason, your napkin actually should be folded and then sort of tucked in beside your place setting, not on your chair. There's a lot of etiquette things out there saying that, oh, at the end of the meal, you put it on your chair. I would never, ever put a napkin on a chair. As an example, we're using light-colored chairs.
Right.
If I just had a pasta dinner and I had a white napkin, if you put your napkin on my
Yeah.
chair, I'd kick your butt.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
Yeah.
So you also got to think, so it's not just that. If you put it on your chair and then you come back, you could be sitting on something that fell out of your napkin or got transferred
Right.
on there, and then not to mention somebody else, the next person who's going to be sitting in that chair would have the
Makes
same
sense.
issue. So it's just out of common courtesy, so make sure that your napkin and whatever is tucked inside goes there. Then the last thing, of course, is dessert. That's what the fork and the spoon are in the front. If you're getting served coffee, your coffee spoon will come with your coffee. It's not usually tucked there. It's usually on the side of the saucer. So this is the easiest one. What do we call this?
The train.
The train.
Choo-choo train.
That's what you teach the kids. So they're basically facing in opposite directions. So after all of this is gone, and you get served your dessert, all you're supposed to do is take the two things at the top of your place setting, and you're gonna pull them down like that. So now the fork and the spoon are traditionally served together, and that's because it'd be like cake and ice cream, or cake and a sauce, or some kind of a bread pudding, so that if there's things that have a sauce component for it, you have a spoon to go with it. If there's things that can pick up with a fork, you have a fork.
So when you're setting the table for your guests, make sure you do the choo-choo train the other way, because then otherwise they pull it down and they're all messed up, and it's on the wrong spot.
Yes, exactly. So you got to think when you started off, fork's still on the left, right? Fork. I know you're gonna. Sorry, Deke. Anyways, if you want to listen to the rest of the little tips and stories, along with the rest of the weekly news and what we're drinking this week, make sure you listen to the audio episode below. Bye.